Ever wrestled with the torment of uncertainty in a relationship that defined your very being? My journey with Kelly, steeped in profound affection, was suddenly eclipsed by creeping doubts. Do you understand how much I love you and how losing you would shatter me? I admitted during a confrontation, my heart clinging to her every expression. Despite her reassurances, hollow echoes reverberated amidst the whispers of suspicion. As my world teetered on the edge of collapse, an unexpected ally emerged, Michael. I owe you immensely. You can't fathom what this means to me. I'll forever be indebted to you, General James conveyed, unexpectedly weaving our destinies together further. This is my tale, a whirlwind of affection, betrayal, and redemption. Witness as it unfurls. Life was blissful with Kelly. We'd been inseparable since high school, and I was smitten from the start. Her crimson locks, emerald gaze, and infectious grin swept me off my feet. Though we encountered a few bumps along the road, they were minor. I first glimpsed Kelly when she caught me stealing glances at her during lunch. She playfully scolded me, but then welcomed me to join her and her friend Angela. Angela, robust yet lovely, was Kelly's companion, the two forming a striking contrast. I began spending time with Kelly, aiding her family with chores. Their gratitude was palpable, particularly when we tackled the dishes post-dinner. Mr. Thompson jested about not needing a dishwasher with me around. Kelly and I bonded over simple acts of kindness. Ours was a love story marked by sweetness and simplicity. Together, we found happiness, and life flowed smoothly, until one fateful day. In my teenage years, I relished tinkering with cars, fixing them up for resale. This knack was a gift from my Uncle Tim, a frequent guest after being ejected by his partners. He imparted wisdom on engines and transmissions, for which I was grateful. Kelly, my girlfriend, and I were both determined to pursue our dreams through college. I aspired to be an engineer, while she aimed for surgical nursing. Countless evenings were spent studying together, under her mother's watchful eye to deter any mischief. Despite our academic focus, passionate moments were shared. Kelly, cautious of crossing boundaries, prioritized prudence. I respected her limits, cherishing our time together, even in mere heated embraces. Upon graduation, I surprised Kelly with a marriage proposal, kneeling with a ring adorned with dazzling diamonds and rubies. Her ecstatic yes was met with her mother's elation. Eager to commence our shared journey, I pledged that we'd wed following our next academic milestone. Anticipation and optimism filled our hearts as we envisioned our future together. Standing tall at 6 feet 2 inches, I towered over Kelly, whose stature reached 5 feet 7 inches, her 36C assets effortlessly captivating. We savored a splendid summer, knowing our time together would dwindle once college commenced. Kelly enrolled in a nursing program 45 miles away, mandated by her vigilant mother. Meanwhile, I secured admission to a local state college with an academic grant, augmenting my credentials through Air Force ROTC. My inaugural year at college was a triumph, culminating in a 3.96 GPA. During an ROTC assembly, an envelope bearing an extraordinary proposition was bestowed upon me. An invitation to visit the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs awaited. Although I invited Kelly to join, her academic commitments prohibited her, prompting a solitary journey that greeted me with royal treatment. Guided by a senior cadet named Walker, I explored the campus's wonders, partaking in engaging activities. At dinner, I found myself seated at the head table alongside the commandant and his staff, a surreal honor. Beside Major General Harold P. James's name card, I marveled at my fortuitous circumstances, grateful for this singular opportunity. Kelly might not have been present, but I knew that she was supporting me virtually. The general gave me a cordial greeting and motioned for me to take a seat. He laughed and said that Art had said good things about me when I asked if everyone got to sit at the head table. He clarified that I was recommended for this opportunity by Art, who was a close friend. I was taken aback because I had no idea who Art was. I gulped nervously when the general casually mentioned that Art was my girlfriend's father. He continued by calling Art a wild and resourceful airman who always knew how to make the most of his time and accomplish his goals. The general invited me and a few others to his office after dinner. He complimented my grades and potential and offered me a full scholarship to the Air Force Academy. As I sat in front of his desk, I was both happy and appreciative of the chance that had been given to me. I felt proud of myself and determined to take advantage of this opportunity. I felt motivated and purposeful at the idea of attending the Air Force Academy as a cadet. I was prepared to seize the chances that lay ahead and to welcome this new chapter in my life. It shocked me. I was hesitant to say anything. I replied, "Your offer is amazing, but can I think about it for 48 hours? With a smile, the general stated, "You have up to a week, but not longer." I thanked him and took Walker back to the barracks. Kelly gave me a hug and told me she would miss me the following morning. She requested that I avoid interacting with any other cadets. It surprised me that she was aware of the offer already. Her uncle gave her the details. I discovered that my parents were first introduced by Uncle Hal, who was actually Major General Harold James. Kelly's family appeared to have planned every detail, including my future. Even though it was all a little overwhelming, I chose to accept it. It wasn't all that horrible being an Air Force officer, and I would still become an engineer. The difficult aspect, though, was that Kelly was less accessible. My mom was concerned I might go into combat, but my dad was ecstatic when I told them. I assured her that my goal was to earn my engineering degree and that I had no interest in flying. The following day, I called General James and accepted his offer. He made a joke about watching me, like Kelly asked him to. The classes at the academy were challenging, but I was making progress. The bar was high for us because we were undergoing leadership training. I received an invitation to a party with some cadets one Saturday. Half of them were partying by the pool, barely dressed, when I arrived. I was approached by a girl wearing a thong who made an unsuitable suggestion. But then I saw someone who made me think of Kelly, and I was overcome with guilt. I turned away and declined politely. Even though the girl was calling me names, I knew that kind of party wasn't for me. Several of my classmates had heard about it when I returned to campus. Behind my back, they called me slurs like cube and queer boy. Then, despite my requests to stop, 2 seniors continued to make fun of me. They just laughed at me when I confronted them, so I punched them both, which got me in hot water with the principal. Sitting at his desk, Principal James went over the charges. "Michael, hitting a superior is serious," he replied. "Do you understand that, son?" "Yes, sir," I answered back. "It says here you hit them for no reason," he went on. "Is that accurate?" I gave a headshake. I said, "No, sir." With more tact, he inquired, "Care to explain?" I was hesitant to say anything. "I was invited to a party off campus," I said. Half of the cadets present were nude. I was getting approached by girls. I was even led to a bedroom by one of them. But then I realized what was going on when I saw someone who made me think of Kelly. She labeled me as queer after I shoved her away. Principal James paid close attention. "Michael, you made the right decision," he finally said. "I can see why you had the reaction that you did. However, attacking people is not the answer. All right, let's try to figure out a better way to deal with these circumstances." I nodded, appreciative of his comprehension. Word spread throughout the school after a few of her peers heard her. Behind my back, I started to hear labels like queer, queer boy, and cube from people. I was offended and hurt by it. I was being teased by 2 guys, and I was at my breaking point. Though I know better than to do it, I was unable to restrain myself. They both fell to the ground after I gave them a punch to the jaw. Even though I knew it was wrong, I experienced a rush of satisfaction. I was surprised by the general when I realized that I didn't deserve to be punished. He knew why I did the things that I did. I was told he would take care of it. I was confused, but also relieved. A few days later, there was an assembly at school regarding assault and harassment. It conveyed a message to the entire school and addressed significant issues. During Christmas break, the 2 guys who had harassed me were made to clean up the campus. Together, my girlfriend and I had a great time. We experienced adventures and created enduring memories. I was happy to have her by my side over the Christmas season. Life was enjoyable once more. I wasn't sure I could keep myself in check, so I hoped she had separate beds. Kelly was left alone at home while her parents went to see her sister and new grandchild in Phoenix. Though I wasn't sure we could resist doing something, she offered for me to stay. If I could, she said she could. Admittedly, I was unsure if I could. She gave me a playful kiss over the phone. During my drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I made the decision to visit her home before heading to my parents'. She greeted me with a big hug when I got there, wearing a see-through sundress with flowers on it. We shared a long kiss until one of our neighbors screamed at us. We entered and enjoyed a delectable dinner prepared by Mrs. Wilson. Kelly and I watched a movie on the couch after having just the right amount to eat. She went to change after claiming to be cold. She reappeared with a tiny matching thong and a sheer pajama top. She jumped up onto my lap and gave me a passionate kiss. She started to undress me as I started to ask if she was sure. I got a job from her. Whoa, I said to myself. From where did she get this knowledge? A part of me was curious, but I also knew that she would be upset with me if I asked because I thought she was cheating on me. But she was doing it like a pro, my goodness. Not that I've ever dated one previously. Kelly was screaming uncontrollably as waves of orgasms crashed over her. Yes, she exclaimed. Wow, Michael, I replied. But Kelly persisted in her wild attack, pressing her lips tightly to mine and tangled her tongue with mine, and I exploded. Kelly, I'm about to explode. Let me pull out. We're not ready to be parents. We both have school to finish. Kelly's legs and body shook, and we were still sitting on our couch, holding each other in that exact same way. Oh no. I held her close and stroked her soft back. How had we proceeded? This Kelly was nothing like the one I had left behind a few months prior. I started to wonder if she was seeing someone else at this point. She had transformed from a shy little flower into a lustful lady, and I know it was stupid. I did, however, adore her. She turned to face me, her eyes glazed over and a secretive smile on her face as I kissed the perspiration from her neck and shoulder. Did you enjoy my gift, my love? She asked, sticking her finger in my mouth. That was quite a gift. What did I do to deserve that? I replied. Aren't you worried about getting pregnant? You know that would mess up our plans for school, I responded. Kelly leaned back with me holding her with my arms to keep her from falling and said, Michael, sweetheart, first of all, last month I talked with a doctor and he gave me birth control pills. Second is because Uncle Hal called and told me how you said no to a girl who was trying to seduce you into having wild sex with her. You turned her down. Rewrite the given text and follow these rules. Use short and low syllables. Change words with simpler words and use varied sentence lengths. Use the most common words in the English language when possible, keep word count the same in a story-like tone with strong emotions, and extend in length. I knew you were thinking of me when you came back home, and you wanted to please me after knowing I wouldn't approve of cheating. I decided to surprise you with a special gift and asked some nurses for ideas on how to make you happy. Did I do a good job? It seemed like you enjoyed it a lot. Michael, I can tell you did. When I told them how big you were, they even wanted your number. If we didn't end up together, it made me proud and a bit annoyed at the same time. I made sure to please you in every way possible, pulled you close, and kissed you deeply, showing you how much I loved you. Then, after we had our fun and went to sleep, we woke up to the sounds of outside life. This was Southern California, after all, and she went to brush her teeth before coming back to clean mine. We ended up having sex again, and the minty toothpaste gave it an extra kick. Kelly then mentioned that we should keep this in mind for our wedding night. She went to make breakfast after we had both reached our peak. I could smell the bacon cooking as I got ready and saw her in the kitchen, barely covered by an apron, looking stunning. I poured myself some coffee and stared at her, admiring her beauty, and as I sipped my coffee, I realized I needed to strengthen up because she had hinted there was more excitement to come. I poured another cup of coffee and sat back down, and Kelly brought out a plate of bacon and a stack of corn cakes, knowing that I love them, since her mother makes them for me. Kelly told me to help myself to sugar and cream for breakfast, and she made corn cakes and maple bacon. I asked if that was okay. I sat at the table where she placed the morning paper, struggling to read as I watched Kelly moving around in front of me. I felt licorice in my crotch. I had eaten a lot by the time we raced through the park, but she insisted that we clean up and go for a jog to Starbucks. Kelly wanted to see my parents, and my mom had chastised her for not returning home the previous evening. Kelly reassured her that I was a perfect gentleman, and I hoped my mom didn't notice the emphasis on the word perfect. Mom gave Kelly a stern look and said, "So now you're calling me Linda instead of Mrs. Grant, huh?" "Well, Mrs. Grant, I thought maybe we could be more casual since I'll be part of the family soon," Kelly said softly as she stepped back, searching for the right words. Mom grinned and gave Kelly a tight hug. "You're my son's future wife," she said. "You've already become like family. While your parents are away, why don't you spend the night here? When we're by ourselves at home, we don't need any trouble." When I graduated from the academy, she offered to organize the wedding. Kelly gave her mother a happy hug before turning to ask for my opinion. I gladly gave it to her, and Kelly and I followed. We paused to catch our breath after running through the woods, and Kelly asked if I saw anyone else. Kelly immediately invited me to join her by taking off her shirt and bringing down her shorts as I shook my head and looked around. Kelly spread her legs and pushed me to move as we came across a flat rock that was lying up. I followed her lead. I won't have to repeat myself. I was a little uncomfortable on the rocky surface, but I persisted because I wanted to win Kelly over. She repeatedly expressed her pleasure as I attempted to reach my peak, and after a while, Kelly asked if I was going to finish it. I acknowledged that I was suddenly having trouble because of the uncomfortable position. Someone below responded to my scream, which reverberated throughout the canyons, by making a joke about how ashamed we were of our joy. Kelly changed into her clothes quickly. We made our way back to the car, me having to take my muddy shirt. Kelly's parents wanted to speak with us about a potential future together, my mother told us. About our mountain adventure, we laughed. Sarah sensed something was off as soon as she walked in. She persuaded us that we had sex by asking us questions about our relationship. Kelly and I made an effort to refute it, but Sarah saw our appearance and said she could tell by our facial expressions because she had seen similar things in the past. After getting hitched, we attempted to defend ourselves, surprised and perplexed, but Sarah made it obvious that she knew the truth. With a range of emotions, the conversation came to an end, leaving us both feeling vulnerable and exposed. Harold threatened to make him a target at the shooting range if he became pregnant before we were married, but you two seem close now, don't you, Mom? I'm an adult, don't treat me like a child. Kelly answered, "Dear, I should have talked to you about this sooner, but I thought we had time. For this, I hold myself accountable. Do you wear protection?" Kelly gave a headshake. Mom held Kelly's hand while he sighed. "Use birth control pills, do you?" Kelly gave a nod. Yes, Mom grasped Kelly's hand and had a worried expression. "Most of us, sweetie, have problems with birth control pills. When I had you and your sister, I was on them. I had to try other ways, or your dad had to use condoms. Now is the time to use condoms." Mom said, "Get a few pregnancy tests," as she looked at me. "Just to be safe, take one now and 2 more in the upcoming weeks. Michael may possess powerful sperm." We were stunned. With their hands clasped tightly, Kelly was crying uncontrollably. I reassured her that we would overcome this as I held her close. Perhaps you're not expecting, but my comments didn't stop her from crying. Her head was buried in my chest. Mom came over and gave us both a hug, kissed Kelly, and shook her head worriedly. I apologized. "No, kids, I didn't tell you sooner. I believed there was additional time." After Sarah led Kelly to her room, I hurried back to my house to change into polo shirts and jeans. I then went to the store to buy condoms and pregnancy tests. The checkout girl shot me a strange look. I took Kelly's mother's tests while driving to her house. Kelly seemed upset when she called me the following morning. "I'm going to be a father," she said. Her parents desired a conversation with my parents. I was really afraid to tell my folks. My mom entered as I was pounding my head against the wall. She assured me that she would always love and support me. I inhaled deeply and began to cry. I informed her that she would soon become a grandmother. Despite her shock, she said we would work things out. It was her warning to not play with fire. We now had to accept the consequences and work with the circumstances. Her progress can't be too great. It was only 10 days ago that we first had sex. It was not what I had anticipated. We were putting money aside for our honeymoon, but Kelly told me about a female cadet who made advances on me, which I declined. She went on the pill and asked her coworkers for advice on how to treat their partners because she wanted to give me a reward. I just wanted to say hi and let her know I was back before heading over to see you guys. In the end, we shared a meal and watched a movie on the couch. Things simply transpired. My mother asked if I was the real parent of the child. Since Kelly isn't that kind of girl, I became defensive. I knew it was my first, but I could tell it was her first as well. Kelly claimed to be on the pill, but Mom was dubious because she still became pregnant. Kelly's mother reacted angrily when she learned that Kelly and I had slept together the day before. Her mother informed her that birth control pills are not typically effective in their family. Her parents now wish to discuss the circumstances. "Unless you want to do it for me, I have to tell my dad." "No, mister, you must complete the task on your own." While my dad was in the garage fixing the mower, I had to break some bad news to him alone. I approached him. Before we spoke with the Thompsons, my mother mentioned that he needed to tidy up. She advised me to treat him gently. I broke the news to my dad. It was difficult to determine. He looked different after I told him. He twirled me around in his hug. He was overjoyed to be a grandfather. "We could work it out," he said. He had faith in us. I'd already told my mother. She was less thrilled. The baby wasn't in her opinion, but I knew Kelly wouldn't act that way. To discuss the situation, we had to go to the Thompsons. My father hurried away to prepare. We got to the Thompson residence. My father was so excited. He was eager to go fishing and have tea parties with his grandchild. He was confident we could pull it off. He thought our love was real. Though it was a difficult conversation, my dad supported me. He was looking forward to the future and pleased to be a grandfather. I was appreciative of his encouragement and faith in us. Our parents sat with the 6 of us in the living room. We had all come together to talk about something very important. My future father-in-law, Art, got up to introduce himself. He got right to the point and avoided flowery language. He was adamant that Kelly and I get married in order to prevent having an unmarried grandchild. My folks concurred with him, so Art asked our thoughts. I gave Kelly a firm handshake and nodded. We were prepared to follow their lead. That day, Art had already made plans for us to pick up our marriage license at City Hall. He had even made arrangements for us to be married on Friday night by Judge Bartholomew. Art stressed how important it is to invite a few friends, along with the maid of honor and best man, to the wedding. The haste of getting married on New Year's Eve worried my father. Art explained that it made sense to have the wedding then, since Kelly was returning to school and I was heading out for Colorado soon after. It would also be simple to recall that day for our anniversary. Art assured us that in order to facilitate the hasty wedding, Judge Bartholomew had already acquired our backdated marriage license. Regarding Kelly's pregnancy, my mother voiced some reservations and advised holding off until a doctor could confirm. She even brought up the potential for a paternity test, which I quickly ruled out. It was decided that we would go to Judge Bartholomew's chambers and pick up our marriage license. Even though we had some initial reservations and misgivings, we were all proceeding with the wedding plan. Despite the intense emotions present in the room, we were all committed to seeing it through to the end for the benefit of our future family. We were married in Art and Sarah's living room on Friday. General James, Kelly's sister, and I were the only ones there. Paul is my best friend. General James didn't say much to me, so we didn't know what he thought of us. It was difficult to say goodbye to Kelly on Sunday. I sobbed when she went. We were gifted a weekend stay at the Marriott honeymoon suite by our parents. I studied hard back at the academy to distract myself from my longing for Kelly and our child. Kelly rarely emailed me because she was so focused on her master's program. I always told my mom that the baby was mine, even though she would occasionally ask if it was. Kelly said she felt overweight, so she didn't send me any photos. It hurt that even on our days off together, she would not look at me. Kelly's mother even hinted that she might be seeing someone else. I once saw another guy with Kelly at her school. I became enraged and shouted for him to return. Kelly, her baby bump visible, ran to me with a big smile. She gave me a tight hug and powerful kisses. After all the uncertainties and anxieties, it was a happy and relieving moment. I pledged to always protect Kelly and our child after realizing how much I loved her. Nothing could ever separate us because of our unbreakable love. After our kiss, I questioned Kelly about the man who had grabbed her arm. He's just her friend Josh, a nurse, she told me, and he walks her back to her dorm. Instead of driving every day, she is now staying on campus. On the weekends, her parents come get her. She informed me excitedly that an ultrasound will be performed next month to determine the baby's gender. I told her that as long as the baby is healthy, I don't really care. When I saw Kelly and her mother packing, I was met with a chilly reception. I didn't feel at home. I returned to the academy to finish my studies, thinking about Kelly and our child. She expressed her excitement to learn the baby's gender in an email she sent me along with a picture from the ultrasound. At first, all I could see was a hazy outline of a baby with shadows and squiggles. I therefore printed it out, enlarged it, and gave it to the doctor and the medic. The doctor finally said, "It looks like I'm going to be a father to a future airman," which perplexed them both. I was taken aback. Upon presenting my documents and acknowledging my single status, the physician discovered that my spouse, Kelly, was actually the general's niece. He chastised me for not reporting it and threatened to take legal action against me. I was afraid that until my tour was over, I would be stationed somewhere isolated and cut off from everyone. That day, as I stood on the firing range, anxiety raced through my head. How did I end up in this situation? I knew how to use my weapons to hit targets, but this was a different kind of challenge. I knew I had to accept the consequences of my actions, and the weight of my mistakes was heavy on my shoulders. As the doctor's words continued to play over in my head, I became acutely aware of my error. I had not planned on beginning a family in this way. I was filled with a mixture of regret, fear, and uncertainty about my unborn child's and my own future. But I knew in my heart that I had to be resilient and deal with whatever came my way. I hit the bullseye every time, even though the range instructor kept moving me to farther targets. It required a few shots to get my aim right, but after that, I was spot on. My phone rang after I shot at 1,000 yards, showing me a picture of Kelly holding our new baby. A name was requested in the caption. I was so excited that I yelled, drawing other officers' attention. They gave me congrats, and the instructors thanked me before sending me back to my barracks. I called Kelly, thinking of a name for our son. After she responded, I proposed naming him James Grant in honor of her uncle. But when she said Michael, I was taken aback. She added that that name would be very popular with her mother and uncle. Then she wanted to know when I would visit her and our son at home. I said that I had suspicions that she was seeing someone else, especially after spotting her with another man. Kelly worried that I was unfaithful, but I reassured her that I was faithful and in love. I swore I would never betray her trust and promised to return home soon. My worst nightmare would be losing her. Kelly sniffled, and I comforted her, telling her I never intended for her to cry. We'll see the general soon, and I love her. To take it to the general, I asked her to email me the photo that she texted me of herself holding James. She promised, and a new email notification appeared on my computer in less than a minute. I noticed the picture I needed when I opened my email. I edited the photo with a program. I printed multiple copies and hurried to the general's office after adding the following text to the photo: October 12, 99, announcing the arrival of our future airman, James Howell Grant, born to Michael and Kelly Grant. His aide initially said the general was busy. I told him his niece had just had a baby boy and showed him the picture. He smiled and said he'd tell the general it's a special delivery. I hope he won't be upset with me. I know I upset him before. I nodded. The aide opened the door and shouted special delivery, then quickly marched to the general's desk, saluted. When the general saw me, he stood up and yelled, "What do you think you're doing here?" I handed him one of the pictures without saying a word. He was about to throw it away without looking, but something caught his eye. He looked at it for a long time, then sank back into his chair. His chin trembled, and a tear rolled down his cheek. He held the picture against his chest with his eyes closed. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes and said, "I assume you came here to ask for some time off to meet your new son. Go ahead, take a deep breath." I replied, "I can't expect anything from you. I know you don't like what we did, but we love each other and plan to get married after I graduate in June. When you told Kelly about me turning down that girl, she wanted to, well, reward me by being intimate with me. She started taking birth control pills, but didn't know that it might not work for her. Her mom never mentioned that it's a problem in their family. I tried to stop, but Kelly wouldn't let me. Now we have James, named after you, sir." The general chuckled and said, "Sounds like the James women are similar. I should have talked to you before this mess." He called someone and said, "File a flight plan to Edwards ASAP, we're leaving in an hour. I'm bringing a cadet. I'll explain later. Get it done." Thanks to the general's instructions, I packed quickly and met him on the tarmac in 45 minutes. I rushed to my barracks and packed a bag. I caught a ride to the runway. I didn't know which plane to take. I saw a shiny Cessna jet with its engines running. I saluted the pilot, and he asked why the general was taking me on short notice. Rumors about him being gay or having affairs swirled around. I explained that the general keeps his personal life private. He never gets involved in long-term relationships. His wife cheated on him with another officer in Iraq, everyone knew, but he stayed silent. The general, injured in battle, was desperate to find his missing daughters. The witch who had tricked him was on the run with the man who had betrayed him. As the general's plane took off, I found myself sitting across from his seat, filled with anticipation. The engines roared as we sped down the runway, lifting off into the night sky over Denver. The sights below were mesmerizing, but I was brought back to reality when one of the general's aides called my name. I was summoned to the cockpit, where the captain greeted me with a smile. Confused but eager to help, I made my way past the captain and into the cockpit. The general's voice crackled over the intercom, requesting my presence. I couldn't fathom why he needed me, but I didn't question it as I hurried to him. The urgency in the general's eyes was palpable as he explained the situation. He needed my help to locate his missing daughters, who were taken by the traitorous couple. I felt a surge of determination and loyalty to help the general in any way I could. As the plane soared through the night, I worked alongside the captain and the general's aides to come up with a plan. We needed to find a way to track down the couple and bring the general's daughters back to safety. With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher. The general's anguish was evident, and I knew that I had to do everything in my power to help him. The mission ahead of us was risky, but I was ready to face whatever challenges came our way to bring the general's daughters home. The general was on the left, flying the plane, and he gestured for me to sit beside him. I strapped in, and the general said, "Take charge, cadet. Show me what you've got." I had never flown a plane or even been in a cockpit before. I took hold of the controls, trying to keep the plane steady. The general urged me on, pushing me to do more. As we dipped down, he corrected my course, guiding me through the controls. I was nervous but determined to learn. The general quizzed me on our altitude. I had no idea. He showed me the altitude gauge and explained each instrument in the cockpit. He gave me instructions on how to handle the plane and let me practice with the controls. As we prepared to land, the general talked to air traffic control, getting permission and guidance. He taught me how to set the flaps and account for crosswinds. It was a thrilling experience. After landing, we rushed to the hospital where Kelly was. The general led me through the halls, exuding authority. We entered her room, filled with flowers and balloons, and my heart swelled with emotion. When I entered the room, Kelly was feeding our son, and her eyes sparkled with joy. Tears filled her eyes as she exclaimed, "Michael, I can't believe you're here." I hurried over to her, and we shared a sweet kiss. She then warned me to be careful not to squish our son. She handed him to me, and as I looked at his precious face, I noticed how much he resembled me as a baby. I knew there was no denying that he was my son. General James was standing beside Kelly, caressing her face gently. He whispered something to her, causing her to pull him closer and plant a kiss on his cheek. I felt a surge of happiness filling me up. I approached the general and asked if he would like to hold James. He took him from me, cradling him carefully in his huge hands. It seemed like he was afraid to handle him roughly, afraid he might break him. Kelly reassured him, saying, "Uncle Halal, you can hold him. Don't worry, you won't hurt him." The general moved to a chair by the window, adjusting James's diaper. He glanced at us proudly, noting, "Yep, I can see he's a James all right." I checked for myself and thought he resembled me, but I kept my thoughts to myself. The general straightened the diaper, and I went back to Kelly, embracing her as we shared a tender moment. Just then, our mothers entered the room. Sarah, Kelly's mother, reached out for James, but the general stopped her, saying, "Sorry, sis, you'll have plenty of time with this little one. We have to leave in the morning." Kelly's heart sank as she pleaded with him, "Uncle Halal, can't you two stay a few more days, please, pretty? Please?" As he rocked little James, he said, "Kelly, I can't stay tomorrow because of a meeting with Senator Perkins. He wants his son to join the academy, but the boy has had issues with grades and drugs. We can't help with that. Maybe we can discipline him at the academy." Kelly asked if Michael could stay until Sunday. After some thought, the general agreed and ordered him to report to Edwards on Sunday at 9 a.m. Everyone laughed at the idea of disciplining Senator Perkins' son. The next few days flew by as Kelly and James moved in with her parents. They had set up a nice nursery for James, and both sets of parents were there to help. Everything seemed perfect until Saturday afternoon. Michael found his mother trying to get a sample from James's mouth. He was angry and wanted to confront her, but she gestured for him to stay quiet. He stormed out of the room, leaving Kelly worried. When she asked what was wrong, he snapped and then apologized. "I'm really going to miss you and our son when I have to leave. It's hard not knowing when we will see each other again." I hated lying to her, but I had to go. She gave me a passionate kiss, interrupted by a cough from her father. The flight back was fun, with the general teaching me how to fly. He asked if I wanted to become a pilot, and I said yes. I watched as we landed, impressed by the controls and techniques. I enrolled in flight school, and time flew by. I made it home for holidays, seeing James grow with each visit. Kelly graduated, and I attended with a big surprise waiting for me. My mother revealed that James was my son, and I was ecstatic. I warned her not to tell Kelly, or she would never see James again. We celebrated, but there was tension in the air. I continued my training and schooling, getting closer to my goals each day. I missed Thanksgiving, but by Christmas, I had achieved new milestones. I was ready for deployment, with my flight and sniper training completed. I was busy but determined to succeed in my new journey. After completing secret missions overseas as a sharpshooter for intel groups, I received unexpected good news. I was granted 6 weeks of leave starting in December and assigned to a new station at Edwards. I could even get base housing for my family. Excited, I immediately called Kelly, my wife, to share the news. She was thrilled and planned a surprise getaway to the Hilton for us. During our stay, we had the time of our lives in the honeymoon suite. Kelly was a vision of beauty, and we indulged in each other's love. Room service visits were always a treat, as Kelly would playfully tease the young staff with her enticing presence. She made sure to show off a bit of skin, making their day and even getting free tips from them. Our breakfast delivery one morning was especially memorable, as a young woman lingered longer than usual, captivated by Kelly's charm. It was a moment of bliss for us, enjoying each other's company and creating memories that would last a lifetime. Love was truly in the air, and we relished every moment of our time together at the Hilton. When our waitress asked if we needed anything else, I said no and gave her a $120 bill before she left. Kelly then surprised me by initiating some intimate time, which led to unexpected consequences. Despite having an IUD, our lovemaking resulted in the arrival of our daughter, Alicia, 9 months later. Kelly, without my knowledge, decided to have her tubes tied after Alicia's birth, causing a rift between us. The name Alicia held deep significance, as it was the name of the general's first daughter, who we never met. At Alicia's christening, the general's tears of both joy and sorrow were impossible to hide. During lunch with the general, he expressed his sadness over missing out on meeting his grandchildren, a pain that cut deep despite his attempts to compose himself. His emotions overwhelmed him, leaving me at a loss for words as he walked away. I grabbed a tissue soaked with his tears and held onto it, feeling the weight of his sorrow. I wrapped the tissue in plastic wrap, a small gesture to hold onto the memories of that emotional day. The unspoken pain and regret echoed in my mind, reminding me of the connections we often take for granted. The tissue became a symbol of the unspoken emotions that tied us all together, a tangible reminder of the bonds that transcend time and distance. I didn't tell them anything at home. I took some tissues and sent them to Ancestry.com with my name and email on a lunch. 2 months later, I got an email from Emily and Jane, sisters who found out they had DNA related to me. They grew up in Canada and were told their records were lost. Their dad was John, and their mom was Carolyn. They moved to Alaska for their brother Kenneth's medical needs. After a while, they settled in Oregon. Their dad had passed away, and their mom was in a nursing home. They both had families of their own. We had a phone call where I told them about their real father, General Harold P. James, who their mom ran away with when she was pregnant with them. They had memories of another father, but their mom told them to forget it. I told Emily that she was named Alicia, and Jane was named Sarah Marie. They were both shocked as those were their children's names. Now they have a decision to make. I found your real dad. Do you want me to tell him, or do it yourself? I'm married to his niece. My dumb mom doubted I was his son, so we did a DNA test. The girls were together and talking quietly. They asked how they could meet him. I said I'd try to arrange it. I called General James and asked for a favor. He agreed to fly us to Oregon. He asked if it involved Kelly. I said indirectly, it affects both our families. We met the girls at the airport. They ran up and hugged the general. He was shocked. They called him Daddy and hugged him, tears of joy filled his eyes. The girls introduced their husbands and kids. I stepped back as the general sat down to take it all in. I finally reunited with my long-lost daughters and discovered I had 7 grandchildren I never knew existed. It was an overwhelming moment, and I couldn't wait to share the news with Kelly. We packed our bags and headed to their place, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The general, my father-in-law, was bursting with pride. I could see the joy in his eyes as he introduced me to his extended family. He expressed his gratitude towards me, saying he would forever be indebted for bringing us all together. It was a heartwarming moment that made all the effort worth it. After spending some memorable days with our newfound family, we had to say our goodbyes. The general thanked me once again, and I felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing I had made such a positive impact on his life. As we left, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the bond we had formed. Our next adventure led us to Hawaii, where we started a new chapter in our lives. Kelly found a job with a talented orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Penrose, who eventually passed on his practice to Dr. Shaw. Kelly flourished in her role, constantly learning and growing in her career. Dr. Shaw was a brilliant surgeon, always striving to improve her techniques. Kelly accompanied her to numerous training seminars, soaking up knowledge and experience. I took on the role of a supportive husband, managing our home while our children grew into independent young adults. As our children pursued their own paths, Kelly's career continued to flourish. Her trip to Dallas for robotic surgery training was a turning point. She was excited about the possibilities it offered both for patients and medical professionals. The 2 weeks without her felt long, but I knew it was a step towards a brighter future for all of us. It had been a while since Kelly and I had been intimate despite my desire for it. School and friends kept Alicia occupied, leaving me alone most of the time. But that changed the day I picked up Kelly from the airport. She was all over me in the car, whispering seductive promises in my ear. When we got home, she couldn't wait and pulled me out to the garage, where she had a sudden burst of passion. She laid down on the car's hood, urging me to take her right then and there. I was stunned by her boldness, but I couldn't resist her. We were caught off guard by Alicia's arrival but managed to sneak back inside, feeling like mischievous teenagers. It was a side of Kelly I hadn't seen before, and it ignited a fire in our relationship. As we lay in bed catching our breath, I couldn't help but feel grateful for this unexpected passion. It was a reminder of the deep connection we shared, and I was eager to explore it further. Thank you for watching Part 1. Please subscribe to the channel and please click the link to Part 2 below the description. If you find these content useful, please share them with your friends and family. Thank you for your support, and have a great day. Kelly left, and we both laughed. She undressed, naked underneath. I was surprised. She pushed me onto the bed, took off my pants, and got on top of me quickly. It didn't take long for her to climax. She got off and thanked me, saying she needed that. She hoped for more later. Kelly changed into Daisy Dukes and a t-shirt, then went downstairs. I cleaned up and dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. Kelly shook her head when she saw me, indicating a private conversation with Alicia. I went to my den and checked our bank account. I found charges in Dallas for a dress and a wax. I searched for the Dallas Robotics Seminar and saw Kelly's picture on the website. She looked stunning in a black dress and red heels. I printed out her picture and hid it under the mattress. I wondered if her affair at the seminar made her horny. How could I talk to her about this? I ordered takeout for Kelly and Alicia, who had a date. Kelly looked sexy as she ate. She was enjoying her food. I was struggling to picture her at the seminar because she was so sexy. Then she got sauce on her fingers from the sweet and sour shrimp. She seductively sucked on her fingers, watching my reaction. I couldn't resist, so I carried her to our bedroom and quickly undressed. Kelly got on all fours and said, "Show me what you've got, big boy." I kept going, fueled by her passion, even though she asked me to stop eventually. Afterward, we lay in bed in silence. I saw a tear fall from her eye and asked her what was wrong. Kelly confessed that something had happened at the seminar. She mentioned the attractive women at the academy and asked if I had ever thought about being with them. I reassured her that she was the only one I wanted. Despite temptations during missions, I never strayed because I couldn't bear to lose her. We talked about our fears and insecurities, opening up to each other in a moment of vulnerability. As we held each other close, I knew that our love was stronger than any temptation. I never thought about playing with any of them. It was a tough situation. I was on a secret mission in South America with 5 female officers, and I ended up sharing a tent with Captain Tyler. She slept naked on top of her sleeping bag, making things even harder. I tried to be polite and faced away from her at night, but she snuggled up to me, slipping her hands under the sheet and into my boxers, teasing and playing with me. Captain Tyler was stunning, like a model from a magazine. I had to gather all my self-control to stop her advances and tell her that I was happily married and wouldn't do anything to risk my marriage. She kissed me passionately and asked why all the good ones were already taken. I told her that Kelly, my wife, was the love of my life and our baby was my everything. I couldn't betray them. Kelly later questioned me about my trips for work and if I ever got lonely. I admitted that no one could compare to my wife. When I needed release, I would look at pictures of her to satisfy myself. I reminisced about a romantic weekend we had at a cozy B&B in the woods, using those memories to keep me grounded. In the end, the love I had for Kelly and our son was unwavering, and no temptation could sway me from that. They were my world, and I would never jeopardize what we had for anything or anyone else. I hope you're not mad at me, I said. I'd stop a week before coming home so you wouldn't miss out on any fun. Why so many questions? What happened at the seminar? Holding my hand, Kelly said, promise not to get mad. I sat up and said, it depends on what you have to tell me. I'm anxious and want to know. Please tell me. Taking a deep breath, Kelly said, I've been fantasizing about being with someone else for fun. I still love you, but we've become boring. I can't help but think about other men. I see them everywhere, and it's driving me crazy. I tried to be sexier for you, but it never worked out. I understand how you feel, I said, wiping away tears. What if I told you I feel the same way? I miss our wild times together. What happened in Dallas? Kelly hesitated, then said, I met someone. What? I exclaimed. Kelly reassured me and said, it's not what you think. Let me explain. Sit down and listen. We were busy with seminars at first, but then I met someone on the third day. Doctor Who, one of the presenters, had a powerful impact on me. When David Patterson walked onto the stage, I felt a rush of excitement. My heart raced, and I couldn't focus on what he was saying. I was completely taken with this tall, handsome doctor. He was black, but that didn't matter to me. He was a true gentleman. My friend had told me I would like him. That evening, I got dressed in my new red dress, hoping to catch his eye. I found David at the cocktail party and brought him a glass of wine. We struck up a conversation, and I learned he had recently gone through a divorce. We talked about our work, and he mentioned he would be leading a new robotic team at County General in L.A. The next night, at a formal dinner, David asked to join me and Dr. Shaw. He was charming and polite. During the speeches, it was revealed he was one of the creators of a new surgical robot. I couldn't stop thinking about David that night. Our connection was undeniable, and as our time together continued, I felt myself falling for him more and more. David and I returned to the lounge after clearing off tables for the band to set up. The place was starting to get crowded, so David took my hand and led me to a booth in the back. He ordered us some chocolate martinis, and when I asked how he knew I liked them, he simply said that such a beautiful and sweet woman must enjoy them. We shared a soft kiss as the band began to play a slow song, and then David pulled me onto the dance floor. Despite our height difference, we moved together gracefully, and I felt myself melting into his arms. We danced several times before returning to our booth for more drinks. I jokingly asked if he was trying to get me drunk, but he assured me that he wanted me to be fully aware and enjoy every moment. When we made love, he kissed my hand, sending shivers down my spine. We danced a couple more times before I finally mentioned needing to get some sleep. David walked me to my room, and as we kissed goodnight, it was no longer just a peck on the cheek. Our lips met passionately, and our tongues danced together briefly before he pulled away, wishing me a good night's sleep as he headed to the elevator. I couldn't help but feel a strong desire for him, but I knew it was best to wait for the right time. I was still naked from pleasuring myself when I heard a knock at my door. Quickly throwing on my sweatshirt, I opened it to find David standing there with a card of breakfast goodies. He complimented my legs and started piling food onto my plate, all the while casually rubbing his foot against my skin. I couldn't focus on eating as his foot moved higher, teasing me until I couldn't take it anymore and orgasmed right there. I wanted to push the cart away and jump him, but he pulled back and asked if I had a dress for the fancy ball that night. I didn't, so he said he would dress me and take me shopping. An hour later, I was dressed and tingling from his touch. He looked handsome in his outfit as he escorted me to his car. We drove away, anticipation building in my chest as I wondered what the night would bring. He took me shopping for a dress, but nothing was right. We tried so many, but he didn't like any. Finally, we went to a fancy store where they promised to make me the sexiest lady at the ball. The salesman was eager to help us find the perfect little black dress. He brought us wine and dresses to try on in the fitting room. As I undressed, the salesman insisted I remove my bra too. He was determined to make sure the dress fit perfectly. I felt nervous but excited at the same time. I wanted to look beautiful for the dance tonight. The anticipation was killing me as I slipped on the first dress. When I looked in the mirror, I couldn't believe how stunning I looked. It was like a dream come true. The salesman and David both agreed that this was the dress for me. I felt like a princess in that moment. The whole experience was magical, and I was so grateful for their help. I couldn't wait to show off my new dress at the dance. David was beaming with pride, and I knew he was happy with his choice. I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. The night was going to be unforgettable thanks to that perfect little black dress. David looked me up and down, his manhood getting bigger. The salesman asked if he should leave so I could try on the dresses. I said no. David was paying, so he needed to approve. I liked the first 3 dresses, but David wanted to see them all. The 4th dress was tight, but David loved it. He bought it without asking the price. We left and went to a jewelry store. David wanted to buy me a pearl necklace. After trying on a few, he unbuttoned my shirt to show off my chest. The salesperson brought out special pearl necklaces from the safe. They were very expensive. David liked one that hung over my breasts. He also liked a set with earrings. The cheapest one was $5,900. He decided to buy it. I put on the necklace and earrings. David had bought me. I looked in the mirror and felt amazed. David saw my smile and bought them without hesitation. I stopped him and said he shouldn't spend money on me like this. It made me feel uncomfortable, but it was too late. He had already paid. I felt guilty and called you. You were happy to hear from me. I felt conflicted but decided to pamper myself. I went to the salon at the hotel and got my hair done, nails painted, and a wax job. I wanted to feel special for David. I got dressed up and put on heels. It was harder to walk in them than I thought. I had time to kill before David arrived, so I wandered around the hotel. Security kept asking me for my room card, and men kept hitting on me. I felt overwhelmed by everything that was happening, but deep down, I knew I wanted to make the most of this experience. I wanted to feel beautiful and confident, and maybe, just maybe, I wanted to make David remember me in a special way. I felt a wave of excitement as I sauntered into the hotel lounge, my sexy outfit attracting attention from the men around me. I was just looking for a drink to quench my thirst, but little did I know the trouble that would soon follow. The older man at the front desk challenged me for my room key, explaining that I looked like a hooker with my outfit. I was taken aback by his words, but brushed it off and made my way to the bar. The men in the lounge immediately took notice of me, offering to buy me drinks and striking up conversation. As I chatted and indulged in chocolate martinis, my phone buzzed with a call from David. He was worried about me and came down to find me surrounded by the men. He quickly intervened, and they scattered, leaving me alone with him. David was not happy with my behavior, but I explained that I was just trying to have a good time. He urged me to eat and take care of myself as I had skipped lunch. I realized I had let the attention get to my head and promised to be more careful in the future. In the end, I Learned that sometimes a little fun can lead to trouble and that it's important to prioritize my well-being over fleeting moments of excitement. With David by my side, I knew I could face any challenge that came my way. David took me to a booth and ordered us cheeseburgers, fries, and chocolate shakes. I didn't feel hungry, but I ate half of my lunch and enjoyed the shake. After finishing, I apologized to David. We missed dinner at the goodbye festivities, which was apparently terrible anyway. The dancing had just started, and my new shoes made it easier for me to dance with David. We were close, and I felt a strong connection as we kissed. The band finished for the night, and David led me to my room. We made out in the elevator and quickly undressed when we got inside. We were about to make love when David stopped and expressed his concerns about cheating on my husband and breaking my wedding vows. I was overcome with emotion. I turned away and started crying. David covered me with the blankets and comforted me. He told me he was falling in love with me and wanted to be sure that I was sure about leaving my husband. I realized the gravity of the situation and asked him to leave before I did something foolish. I felt guilty and confused. I asked if he hated me for what had almost happened. I tried to justify my actions, but deep down, I knew I had crossed the line. David reminded me of what had happened between us, and I couldn't deny it. In that moment, I felt a mix of emotions, guilt, fear, and desire. I was torn between my marriage and my feelings for David. I needed to make a decision, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the consequences of my actions. My wife told me she wanted to cheat with a black doctor. She got naked in front of him and begged him to have sex with her. She asked if she could see him sometimes to fulfill her urges. I was upset and asked if she wanted me to give her permission to cheat on me while I sat at home. I told her he wanted to break up our marriage to be with her. She said it wouldn't happen, but I warned her that it would if she went through with it. I had never cheated on her and was shocked to find out she had done this with him. She thought I might enjoy watching them together, but I was furious. My wife of 22 years had just confessed to wanting an affair with another man. I was shocked when Kelly admitted she wanted to have sex with a black man. I was heartbroken and confused. Then our daughter Alicia walked in and asked about it. She was upset and worried about our marriage. She shared stories she had heard about white women and black men. I comforted Alicia, explaining that people have different preferences. She mentioned some white men she knew with big tools, but then stopped herself. She didn't want to talk about her own experiences with me. I assured her she could talk to me about anything without judgment. Later, I couldn't sleep, thinking about Kelly lying to me and possibly cheating. I went to her workplace only to find out she wasn't there. My anxiety grew as I realized she was keeping secrets from me. I drove around searching for her, feeling lost and betrayed. My heart sank as I couldn't find Kelly. I was filled with worry and confusion, unsure of what to do next. The uncertainty and fear weighed heavily on me as I drove aimlessly, hoping to find some answers. I was walking down the street when I saw the restaurant Kelly and I liked. Her car was parked next to another one, and I felt anger rising inside me. I wanted to damage the cars, but I decided to go inside the restaurant instead. Sitting there, I saw Kelly and a man holding hands in a booth. I felt a surge of emotions. I asked the server if I could get a drink, and she nodded. I gave her some money and ordered a strong drink. As I took a sip, I made my way over to Kelly and the man. I put my drink on the table and introduced myself as Kelly's husband, at least for now. Kelly was shocked, and the man said it was nice to meet me. I couldn't hold back and made a comment about not fitting her ideal type. Kelly was upset, and the man left. Kelly started crying, and I confronted her about lying to me. She explained that she had to meet the man because he asked to talk. I felt hurt and betrayed. I told her we needed to talk at home, and I would follow her there. We left the restaurant, both of us feeling the weight of the situation. We needed to have a serious conversation about what had happened. We left together, me close behind Kelly. She went through a yellow light too late, and I followed, catching the red light twice. I wasn't going to let her escape. Each time, I could see her checking to see if I was still following. We got home, sat at the kitchen table, and I gave us both water. Kelly was nervous, fidgeting like a cat on a hot roof. I smiled and asked, "So, you still want him? Does that mean we have to get divorced, Kelly? I can't handle your lies." She started crying, saying, "No, Michael, I don't want a divorce. I love you, can't you see that? I need to figure out why I'm acting like this. Do you even care about me? Do you still love me?" I shook my head, saying, "I've loved you since high school. We promised to be faithful, remember? Well, I'm not dead. I won't be for a long time. But you seem like you're ready to break that promise. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did with David." Kelly looked down for a few minutes, then finally met my eyes and said, "Michael, it wasn't like that. We were just talking. David wanted to know how I was doing. If I told you everything when I said I did, he joked about marrying me since you threatened to leave if we had sex. That's when you came over and sat next to me," she added, avoiding my gaze. I told Kelly that I didn't believe her. I felt like she was going to have sex with him no matter what I said. "Have you already done it?" She just looked down and didn't answer. I got up, and Alicia came in. She said Kelly didn't want to be part of our family anymore, she just wanted her black lover. Alicia called her Kelly instead of Mom and said she was dead to her. Kelly tried to go after Alicia, but I held her back. Alicia said she could handle her, she had martial arts training. Kelly started crying, and Alicia left. I went to work and found out that my partners wanted to buy Evergreen Industries. The owner wanted to retire and take cash, land, and stocks. He had 4 plants in Seattle. The board wanted me to visit them with 2 partners and decide what to do, upgrade or sell. I didn't want to go, especially with Kelly's interest in David, but they insisted. I tried calling Kelly, but she didn't answer, so I called Alicia and told her. She said Kelly might take the chance to be with David while I'm away. She said, "Daddy, couldn't you do something? Get her help." I told her I think our marriage is over. Alicia asked if I had cheated. I said no, I always stayed faithful. We were planning to grow old together. She asked how long I'd be gone. I said most of next week. She cried, knowing Kelly might betray me. I reassured her, saying I'll figure out the truth when I return. Alicia promised to watch Kelly closely. Emotions were high as I prepared to leave for Seattle to make decisions about the plants. My heart ached at the thought of what Kelly might do while I'm away. Alicia was distraught, fearing for our family's future, but I knew I had to go to fulfill my duties despite the pain in my heart. And so, with a heavy heart, I packed my bags and braced myself for the uncertain days ahead. It was Thursday, and I really didn't feel like working, so I told my secretary I was leaving early. As I was about to leave our parking lot, I remembered that Alicia loved the root beer float ice cream from the small specialty ice cream shop about 2 blocks away, so I made a left turn instead of my usual route. As I was about to pull in, I noticed a store right before the ice cream shop that caught my attention. It was called Ice by Toys. I parked and went inside. The place was filled with all kinds of cool gadgets and spy cameras. The salesman, Tony, greeted me and guessed that I was worried about my wife cheating on me. I was surprised by his accurate guess. He showed me some gadgets, and I ended up buying motion-activated micro cameras, a GPS tracker for Kelly's car, and a program for her phone. Tony also recommended a battery backup with solar panels in case of power loss. I decided to get that too since he offered me a discount. As I was paying, Tony mentioned that he knew my daughter Alicia. I was shocked but confirmed it. Yes, I do have a beautiful blonde daughter named Alicia. She bought cameras in the morning to catch her mother. She seemed upset. I got the camera frequency to add to my iCloud. Then I went home and found Alicia. I gave her a hug and asked about her cameras. Alicia giggled and showed me where she hid them. We added more cameras together. Alicia suggested we become private investigators. That night, Kelly came home tired. She had a long day with surgeries. She slept in our bed while I stayed in the guest room. I tried to check her phone but couldn't guess the password. Finally, I unlocked it and installed a tracking program. I put her phone back and hid a GPS in her car. In the morning, Kelly left early. I called her but got voicemail. I couldn't focus at work, thinking about what I did. During lunch, I told my assistant I needed to go home and pack for a trip, but really, all I could think about was my wife cheating on me. I went to the bank, took out money from our accounts, and opened a new one. I talked to a lawyer and sold most of my shares in the company. I started crying while driving home. A police officer stopped me, and I told her everything. She asked if I had been drinking, but I hadn't. We joked about having a drink together. My tears stopped, and I felt a bit better. Her name tag said Kelly, but I don't think you need a drink right now. Maybe you just need some company. My husband is a detective and a kickboxer, so I better not go with you, but my sister Cassie might be up for it. Her cheating husband left her 2 years ago, and I've been trying to get her out of the house. Let me call her. I told her not to, but she was already on the phone. She said she met a nice guy who needed cheering up. She said I should get dressed up for a dinner, dancing, and drinks. I wasn't sure what to say, but she insisted she gave me Cassie's info and said Michael Grant would pick me up at 6:30. His wife is cheating on him, and he's going through a divorce. Treat her right, she said, and remember, I have your details. I drove home feeling confused. Still no word from Kelly, but Alicia was there to hug me and offer comfort. She reassured me that everything would be okay without her, and I believed her. I looked at my pretty daughter and said, "What if I told you that a lady cop stopped me today because I was crying so hard I couldn't see?" I told her everything. Then we sat on the curb and talked. She asked if I had been drinking, and I joked about having a drink together. She said her husband is a cop too and a fighter. Then she called her sister and set me up on a date for tonight. I've never been on a date with another woman. Am I bad for this? Alicia smiled and hugged me. Dad, clean up and look nice for your date. Forget about Kelly hurting you. Just have fun with Cassie. That's her name. Promise me that, okay? I looked at Alicia and said, "How did you become so wise, my love? Without you, I would be lost." Have you told James yet? No, I haven't. Tonight I'll set things straight with him. Now go get ready for your date. I went to my room, freshened up, and dressed nicely. Then I went downstairs for a glass of wine. Still no word from Kelly. I saw her text to David about meeting at Barney's at 7 o'clock. I just shook my head. Shortly after, Kelly walked in and tried to kiss me, but I pulled away. She didn't seem bothered as she went up to our room, showered, and got ready to go out. She looked amazing. I wanted to grab her, undress her, and have sex with her, but I knew she wasn't dressed up for me. She wore a white shirt, tight black pants, and black shoes. I asked her why she was dressed that way. Was she meeting David? She smiled and said she would never do that. She told me he was just a fantasy. She was going out with some friends to relax. She said she would be out late, so I shouldn't wait up. I checked the GPS on her car and saw she was going to the fancy part of town where the new homes were. I found out that was where David lived. I checked my watch and realized I needed to go meet Cassie, my wife who soon would be my ex-wife. She had left the house to meet her boyfriend. I drove to meet her, but a kind police officer stopped and introduced me to her divorced sister. I hadn't dated anyone since Kelly, 30 years ago. Excited to see what would happen, I got in my car and went to meet her. I bought some flowers and went to her nice house in a fancy neighborhood. I rang the bell, and in front of me was a real-life Jessica Rabbit. She had red hair, big breasts, and a tiny waist. She was wearing a tight black top. Oh my God, she was stunning. Cassie wore a black and white skirt with high heels and nylons. She greeted me and offered a drink before we left. We went into her well-decorated home, and she took the flowers I brought her. We had wine in the kitchen before heading out to dinner. I took her to a steakhouse with steaks. Cassie was worried about the prices, but I reassured her. We ordered our food, and she decided to try the beef Wellington. Dinner and conversation were nice. We danced at the bar, and I shared a story with her. Cassie hugged me, understanding the situation. I almost forgot about Kelly until I got a message on my phone from her friend asking where she was. They were at the playpen and expected her to be there. Kelly replied that she was caught up with something more important. I suggested to my date that we go have some fun. I asked my date if she wanted to go to Barney's for drinks and dancing, just to see if my wife would notice. Her friends had texted her wondering why she had not met them at the playpen like she said she would. My date, Cassie, agreed to the plan. We headed to Barney's, and on the way, she asked how I was getting my wife's texts. I jokingly said it was magic or maybe a sneaky spy program I installed on her phone. Cassie found it amusing. When we arrived at Barney's, it was bustling with people. As Cassie pointed to the far corner, I saw my wife with her lover, David. She looked stunning in a little black dress. Cassie asked if I let her leave the house dressed like that, and I admitted she had worn something different when she left. Seeing my wife in that dress for the first time made me feel a mixture of anger and sadness. I had never seen her look so alluring. David had his hand on her backside, and it made my blood boil. Cassie was shocked by my wife's appearance. As we watched from a distance, I couldn't help but feel a wave of complex emotions. It was a strange mix of jealousy, regret, and a desire for revenge, but in that moment, I was grateful to have Cassie by my side, sharing this strange experience with me. She said he got it for her in Dallas, the pearls and earrings too, but I tracked her car to where I think David lives tonight. Cassie shook her head and whispered, I bet she was with him there too. I winced but agreed with her. We waited as they danced another dance. Sitting in a booth in the back, we stood at the bar, talking about our lives. Suddenly, a booth near them opened up, and Cassie pulled me to it. Kelly and David were too lost in each other to notice. The music started playing, and Cassie asked, Can you dance? I smiled, pulled her up, and we hit the dance floor like teenagers. The crowd gave us room to show off, and we danced wildly. Cassie was an amazing dancer, and we were really getting into it. Kelly never liked dancing like this. Cassie and I were spinning, sliding, and having a great time. The song ended, and I did a crazy move that got the crowd cheering loudly. As we walked back to our table, Kelly suddenly yelled my name. I turned to see her storming towards us with David behind her. She demanded to know what I was doing and who Cassie was. She accused me of betraying her love and flaunting Cassie in front of everyone. Before I could say a word, Cassie stood up and confronted Kelly. She looked Kelly in the eye and calmly explained that she had no intention of replacing her, but just wanted to have a good time dancing. Kelly looked taken aback but stayed silent. Cassie sat back down, and we all sat in silence for a moment. Eventually, Kelly sighed and said she understood. She apologized for overreacting and thanked Cassie for being understanding. The tension seemed to lift, and we all sat back down at the table. As the night went on, we all danced together and had a great time, putting the drama behind us. Listen, miss, you think it's okay if you cheat with David, but you go crazy if your husband goes on a date with another woman. Isn't that being unfair? Cassie asked. You wish, Kelly stumbled a bit, then said, but he's my husband, and I love him. Cassie laughed and said, yeah, right. You love him so much you're cheating with David here. Tell me, how do you think that's love, honey? Please explain it to me. Kelly said, it's just something I need to do and get out of my system. Then I'm going back to my Michael to still be his wife. What? Can't you see? Cassie shook her head and got closer to Kelly's face. You're a mess. If you think you can cheat with David, then go back to Michael, you're crazy. 99% of men, Michael included, won't tolerate a cheating wife, especially when she throws it in his face like you have. If I were in his place, I'd have already kicked you out. I hope you realize you have lost the best thing you ever had. Kelly screamed at her, "No, I'm going back to him, I promise." I looked at her and said, "Kelly, I'm not putting up with your crazy ideas. I'm already talking to a lawyer. You're allowing him into your room, touching him, letting him give you a job, then begging him to cheat with you. It's more than I can handle. You don't seem to want to be my wife, so I'm going to give you your freedom. You can go cheat with whoever you like. By the way, I have to leave on Sunday to go to Seattle for a week on business. If you keep up with the affair with David, we're done. Got it?" Kelly was crying and said, "Honestly, Michael, we haven't had sex." Then she turned to David and said, "Have we, dear?" David didn't answer, he just looked at the floor. I said, "Well, Kelly, I think I have my answer." She grabbed David's lapels and shook him, saying, Tell Michael we haven't had sex yet." I stood in as Cassie was about to leave. I told Kelly that if I found out she cheated on me with David, I would divorce her. Do you understand? It was up to me, David or Cassie. Cassie and I left the restaurant, and she held my hand in the car. When we got to her place, she asked if I wanted to spend the night with her. I wanted to, but I was still married, so I had to decline. She understood, and we kissed goodbye. I went home and waited for Kelly to return. She called me in the middle of the night, saying she couldn't come home. I suspected she had been with David. My trip to Seattle was busy with meetings at Evergreen Industries. The attendance records at the Tacoma plant were not good. My time in Seattle was stressful, the Tacoma plant had poor attendance, and I suspected Kelly had been with David. I was determined to make a change at work, so I announced mandatory drug and alcohol testing for absent employees. The receptionist agreed, saying it was about time someone took charge. She knew most absentees were just partying and needed to be checked by a doctor before coming back to work. Later, my daughter called me worried that Kelly may have caught on to our plan. She saw Kelly with a new phone and suspected something was up. I quickly made up an excuse to leave work and headed to the Sherian where Kelly was staying. I arrived just in time, as my daughter had already eavesdropped on Kelly's room. She managed to record some incriminating evidence of Kelly's infidelity. I was proud of her quick thinking and brave actions. It was clear that Kelly was up to no good, and I was grateful for my daughter's help in uncovering the truth. It was a risky move, but it was worth it to put a stop to Kelly's deceit. The satisfaction of getting to the bottom of things was overwhelming, and I knew we had made the right decision. Captivated by my selfie stick, I had on an earpiece listening to my mother confess her affair to her lover for almost 30 minutes. Suddenly, the manager tapped my shoulder and asked what was going on. I motioned for him to be quiet and whispered that my mother was cheating on my father, and I needed evidence for him to divorce her. Tears welled up as I pleaded for him not to give me away, for I loved my father deeply, and my mother's actions had shattered us both. She told her lover she wanted this affair, but planned to return to my father when it was over. It was devastating. The manager, sharing his own experience of being cheated on, suggested we use my camera to catch them in the act. With his master key, we entered the room quietly as they were engrossed in their betrayal. My mother was on all fours, lost in ecstasy as her lover took advantage. They didn't notice us as we approached, recording everything. When her lover realized, he called out her name in shock. My mother snapped out of her reverie, horrified to see us there witnessing her infidelity. The manager bravely asked them to leave, revealing their betrayal. The emotions were raw as they hastily dressed and departed. The truth was out, and my father deserved better than this deceit. It was a painful moment, but necessary for us to move forward from the deception that had torn our family apart. David frantically searched for his clothes as Kelly wrapped herself in a sheet and beckoned for me to come closer. I sternly told them all that cheating is not acceptable here, and if they stayed longer than 10 minutes, I would call the police for trespassing. I made it clear that their actions had consequences. I informed them that I was sending evidence of their affair to various people, including their parents, siblings, employers, and even their lawyer. I told them they were not welcome back home and that I would be changing all the locks and security codes. Kelly begged for forgiveness, saying she loved my father, but I could see through her lies. I quickly made calls to ensure the locks would be changed and their belongings would be put on the curb that night. I also arranged for divorce proceedings to begin. Seeing the video footage of their betrayal made me sick, not just from their actions, but from the hurtful words they had said about me. I knew I had to do what was best for my father, even if it meant ending my marriage. And so, I began the process of moving on from the betrayal that had shattered my world. He said we might have to sell the house, or I'd have to buy her out, and she might get half of my business. I told him to let her try, but didn't say much. We toured Evergreen Industries and made a plan to keep some locations and sell one. It wouldn't be hard as many workers had already left when drug testing was announced. I struggled to stay sober that night. When I got home, I saw marks on the door. I rang the bell, and she gave me new keys. I asked about the door, and she said my ex-wife was hitting it with a bat. I called the cops, and she ended up in jail. I laughed and shook my head at her. I thanked her and asked her to dinner. She mentioned a friend I should meet. I told her it was okay to call her mother, even though she's upset with her. We hugged, and she held on for a long time. When she finally let go, I asked Alicia where she wanted to go for dinner. She gave me a mischievous look and said, "Delaney's, if that's okay with you. Can I borrow one of your dresses for tonight?" I agreed, and she ran off to my bedroom excitedly. Meanwhile, I poured myself a drink and called Cassie. I invited her to join us for dinner at Delaney's, and she eagerly accepted. I didn't mention the incident with Kelly, but I assured her that Alicia would explain everything later. Cassie asked where we were going so she could dress appropriately. I told her about Delaney, and she asked for some time to get ready. I waited patiently, knowing that Alicia would take longer than Cassie. As I finished getting ready, I heard Alicia's heels clicking on the floor. When she entered the room, I was taken aback by how stunning she looked. Her blonde hair was styled like Kelly's, and she was wearing her mother's gray silk dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Alicia asked me what was wrong, but I couldn't find the words to express how beautiful she looked. It was as if Kelly was standing in front of me. I couldn't believe the dress Alicia was wearing. My heart almost stopped when I saw her in that red sequin dress. It reminded me of Jessica Rabbit, and she looked absolutely stunning. We went to Cassie's house, and when she opened the door, she thought I had 2 dates. I introduced Alicia, and they hit it off immediately. They sat down on the couch, and Alicia showed Cassie the video of how she caught her mother's boyfriend cheating. They were both in shock and discussing every detail. I knew it was time to leave, so I ushered them out to the car. Alicia insisted on driving and took my keys. She said she was going to chauffeur us because I was on a date with a beautiful woman. I climbed into the back seat as Cassie got in. We arrived at the restaurant, and the valet attendants were mesmerized by Alicia's dress as she got out of the car. We walked into the restaurant, and all eyes were on us. Alicia had everyone's attention with her confidence and beauty. I felt proud to have such a strong and independent daughter by my side. The night was off to a great start thanks to Alicia's charm and driving skills. I was getting stares from everyone as we walked into the restaurant. The waiter quickly led us to our table. Our server, a young man named Dwayne, took our drink order. Cassie and I chose a bottle of Riesling, while Alicia opted for an Arnold Palmer since she was driving. As the night went on, Alicia was getting a lot of attention from the other guests. Cassie was also being asked to dance, but didn't want to upset me. I reassured Cassie that she was not my property and could dance with anyone she liked, as long as she checked with me first. During a slow song, Alicia mentioned how she enjoyed flirting with Dean, the young man serving us. She playfully teased me about him being too young for her, and I was momentarily shocked until she revealed she was joking. Dean then asked Alicia to dance, and she happily accepted. Overall, it was a fun night filled with dancing and laughter. Cassie's eyes sparkled as she held out her hand to him, and he twirled her around the dance floor. I went back to our table, watching them dance together. When Cassie returned, she gave me a warm kiss, thanking me for letting Alicia dance with Dana. She asked me how I felt about her dating someone like him. We danced to a slow song, and I shared with her that as her father, I have to let her make her own decisions and mistakes. I will always be here to offer advice when she asks, but I won't force my values on her. Cassie told me that she admired my wisdom and said she felt like she was falling in love with me even though we hadn't known each other for long. She kissed me deeply, and we danced around the edge of the dance floor, lost in each other's eyes as midnight approached. Alicia and Cassie yawned, signaling that it was time to head home. We left the club, and in the car, Cassie and I continued to kiss like teenagers. When we pulled into the driveway, I realized we were at my house. Alicia suggested that they have a sleepover, which I agreed to. I watched as they went inside, feeling grateful for the special night we had shared together. I didn't expect my girlfriend to stay over so soon in our relationship, but when Cassie kissed me passionately, I couldn't resist. We were both thrilled to be together, and my daughter Alicia even joined in on the fun as we settled in. I offered Cassie a glass of wine, which we all enjoyed. Alicia even gave Cassie one of my t-shirts to wear, and they disappeared into another room to watch a movie together. I quickly changed into some silk pajamas and joined them for a cozy evening. The smell of popcorn filled the house, bringing back memories of simpler times. Cassie was in the kitchen wearing just a t-shirt and pants, making the popcorn. Alicia was there too, excited for our movie night. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to have both of these amazing women in my life despite the unexpected turn of events. I felt happy and content. It was a night I would never forget, filled with love and laughter. She heated butter in the microwave and poured it over a bowl of popcorn. Cassie mixed it up while I added more popcorn. Alicia brought out the wine, and we settled in for a movie night. We heard the movie begin, and Alicia quickly covered up. Cassie brought out the popcorn, and we snuggled on the couch. Alicia had streamed a movie from her account, and we all indulged in the popcorn. Alicia got immersed in the movie while Cassie and I shared a secret moment. She poured more wine for Alicia, making sure she fell asleep peacefully. When Alicia went to the bathroom, I teased Cassie about getting my daughter drunk. She simply grinned and pulled me into a kiss, promising a night to remember. As the movie played, Cassie's touch sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't focus on the movie as she teased me. Eventually, Alicia fell asleep, and Cassie carried her to bed. In the kitchen, she pulled me close and undressed me, igniting a fire between us. The night was filled with passion and desire as we surrendered to each other's love. She did a fantastic job for me, something Kelly hadn't done in years. I couldn't even remember the last time. But Cassie was doing it perfectly. When she pulled away, she looked so sexy and said, "Michael, take me to bed and make love to me, please." I took her hand, and we rushed up to the bedroom. She quickly took off her t-shirt and underwear. Cassie was amazing, and I was so happy to be with her. I felt so good but also guilty. Cassie noticed and asked me why I felt guilty. I explained that I was technically still married to Kelly. She got on top of me and said firmly, "You have nothing to feel guilty about. Your ex-wife made the choice to cheat on you. She stopped loving you a long time ago. You deserve happiness." I had just experienced the best time with a woman who was like a model, but it was bittersweet because I had lost the woman I loved for so long. Alicia came into the room and agreed with Cassie. She shared that Mom had made her get birth control when she turned 16. It was a tough realization, but it made me realize that I deserved to be happy. After lunch, my mom and I had a chat. She said she regretted not fooling around more in college or while my dad was away. She said if I had the chance to be with a guy, I should go for it before settling down. She also said to always use protection to avoid diseases. I started being sexually active 3 months later. I promised to tell her about every guy I was with, but she stopped asking after a while. I think she was having an affair back then. One day, I caught my dad and my friend Cassie together, and it turned out my mom had encouraged them. I was shocked to learn that my own mom had turned me into a player without me knowing. I tried to warn my daughter to be careful about her actions, but she seemed unfazed by it all. I worry she won't be happy in the long run if she keeps this up. I can't imagine many men would be okay with their wives being with other guys and staying married, but my daughter seems to think it's all okay. Alicia said she's going to college in Jackson, Tennessee, near where Beth lives. She knows how much money she has for college, and since she won't have to pay for housing, she'll have enough to cover her education. She also promised to be well-behaved in college and not get into any trouble. She doesn't plan on getting married until after she finishes school. I couldn't help but feel proud of her. Cassie agreed that Alicia had it all planned out, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of doubt. I couldn't forget about her past mistakes, the things she did in college that she never told us about. But Alicia assured me that she had learned from her past and was ready to start fresh. She even shared some shocking truths about her mother's past, about the affairs she had in college. It made me question everything about my marriage. Was it all a lie? As I lay there pondering, I asked Alicia if she knew anything about her mother's affairs. After that, she shook her head, saying she had her suspicions but could never prove anything. There were times when she came home to find strange men in the house, but her mother always had an excuse. I couldn't help but feel betrayed and hurt. How could I have been so blind all these years? Was our marriage just a facade, a joke to her? The thought weighed heavily on my heart as I tried to come to terms with the truth. I can't forget how funny it was when she introduced me to the same guy but with a different name. When I asked her about it later, she denied it and said I must have been mistaken. It's clear now that she was cheating on you all along, but I have no proof for the divorce court. Kelly fought hard against the divorce. She argued that she still loved me and her one mistake shouldn't ruin our marriage. She claimed it was something she needed to do and planned on coming back to our normal life. Her therapist even testified that I should be more understanding and forgive her for a mistake after being a great wife for over 20 years. And here I was ready to give it all up. Kelly pointed her finger at me and said, "Shame on you." The judge warned her to control herself or face contempt charges. Her lawyer called her former boss, Dr. Penrose, who praised her as a great nurse and one of his best employees ever. Then our lawyer questioned Dr. Penrose about any advances from Kelly, but he denied them. He was excused from the stand. Next, our lawyer called his wife, Lori Penrose. Kelly's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. Mrs. Penrose turned to Kelly and said, "Yes. I did have suspicions that Kelly wanted to seduce my husband." She described how Kelly would dress provocatively at work, try to take her husband out for lunch, and made inappropriate comments. While Dr. Penrose didn't want to speak badly about Kelly, others in the office confirmed what was going on. When I asked my spouse about it, he owned up to it but insisted he never did anything physical with her, just harmless flirting. But what she was doing was far from harmless, in my opinion. Another nurse mentioned she often went out for long lunches with pharmaceutical reps. During the hearing, Kelly's lawyer smugly questioned me, asking if I had seen Mrs. Grant make advances towards my husband or go out to lunch with reps. I clarified that I never caught her flirting with my husband, but I did witness her inappropriately dressed a few times and looking disheveled after lunch meetings with reps. After I was excused, it was my daughter Alicia's turn to testify. She recounted seeing strange men at home and her mother pressuring her to get an IUD at a young age, advising her to have sex with older men. Alicia was shocked and felt uncomfortable hearing her mother's words in a story-like tone with a mix of emotions. Although my spouse acknowledged that he had flirted with another woman, the real story was far more damaging. Throughout the hearing, the evidence against her mounted, underscoring her dubious actions. We were all shocked and appalled by the troubling pattern of her mother's behavior that Alicia's testimony exposed. Tension in the courtroom increased as the shocking truth about deceit and betrayal came to light. She said in court that it took her 3 months to get up the nerve to allow a boy to have personal contact with her. She went on to say that her mother used to be very curious about all the details of her interactions with boys. However, her mother stopped inquiring about her dates 6 months before she was discovered having an affair with David. Her altered behavior led Alicia to believe that her mother was having an affair. However, she refused to divulge the identities of those with whom she was involved, saying that she didn't want to jeopardize their marriages. She asked to play a video that showed her spotting Kelly and David in a risky scenario. The courtroom became chaotic as a result of the judge's approval. Kelly and David were found to be acting inappropriately and unaware that they were being videotaped. After Alicia was set free, Kelly and her attorney were taken aback when Mrs. Jeffrey was summoned as a surprise witness. Mrs. Jeffrey revealed some crucial information in Kelly's divorce case today in court. My attorney requested her full name after the judge granted her permission to testify. Kelly appeared startled and afraid when she mentioned Louise Marie Jeffrey, also known as Mrs. Dr. Martin Jeffrey. As Mrs. Jeffrey took the oath of office, the court asked her to explain her contact with us. She disclosed that although Kelly was saying the affair was an isolated incident, she was aware of the reality. For 6 months, Kelly had been having an affair with Dr. Patterson, the husband of Mrs. Jeffrey. Videos of Kelly and Dr. Patterson meeting in secret in the hospital storage rooms were provided by Mrs. Jeffrey. Kelly's lawyer objected, but the judge insisted on seeing the evidence. The pictures on the screen validated what Mrs. Jeffrey had said, showing Kelly and Dr. Patterson in awkward situations. As the truth was revealed, the courtroom became tense. Kelly's treachery was made public for everyone to see. Everything in the divorce case changed in an instant, a shocking moment. At last, Kelly's falsehoods were exposed, and justice was carried out. Kelly was discovered having extramarital affairs with several men in various hotels. She was even in the company of 2 other men and Dr. Jeffrey simultaneously. When I watched her perform such acts on camera, I was astounded. She attempted self-defense by claiming that she loved me alone, but how could that be true given the number of other men she was seeing? I was seeing things that I couldn't believe. Kelly had betrayed me, both at his townhouse and with David Patterson. She had been lying to me for a long time, it was obvious. Her actions during the trial left me feeling betrayed and disgusted. Mrs. Jeffrey revealed that she was still married to Dr. Jeffrey and was using his money as she proudly flaunted her expensive jewelry. She was obviously just interested in making money. She even held the key to his tool cage, indicating her authority over his behavior. I became fully aware of how manipulative and dishonest she was as I watched her walk off the witness stand. She made an effort to seem innocent, but it was obvious that her only concern was herself. I saw her true colors and was filled with a mixture of sadness and rage. Ultimately, I felt abandoned and deceived by the woman I had loved. I knew it was time for me to end this toxic relationship because the pain of her infidelity was too great to bear. Kelly's behavior had exposed her actual self to me, and I felt that I deserved better than someone who could so easily trick me. Kelly, a well-paid surgical nurse, was ordered by the court to pay child support even though their daughter, Alicia, preferred to live with her father, and she would not be eligible for spousal support. It was agreed that I would remain in the family home until Alicia completed her college education, at which point Kelly, the kids, and I would split the proceeds equally between us when the house was sold. Kelly became enraged when it was revealed that I had sold my business. After looking over the paperwork, the judge decided everything was lawful. Kelly was told by him to stop using my last name, return to her maiden name, and avoid me at work. I had a restraining order put in place so she couldn't bother me anymore. The judge stipulated that there would be jail time for any infractions. Kelly eventually signed the documents, despite her reluctance. She begged for forgiveness as the judge departed, but my lawyer hurriedly led us out of the courtroom. Even though our marriage was about to end, tension and emotions remained high. When I got home, Alicia and I changed into comfortable clothes. I really needed a drink, which my daughter poured for me. Cassie stopped by, and we drank in my room together. Dinner was pizza, which we ate cold. I dated Cassie for a while before she made marriage-related comments. She was ecstatic when I gave her the ring. I also gave her a honeymoon trip to Jamaica as a surprise. She began arranging the trip because she was very excited. I advised her to go to the wedding in a white nightgown. I was going to wear a b-tie and board shorts. Let's tie the knot by the waterfront. Our wedding pictures will look stunning, barefoot, and joyful, I remarked, giving her a gentle kiss on the hand. I just want us to be together. I'm whispering to you, my love. As we sat down for breakfast, I said to Cassie, let's get married soon. After we get married, we can sell our houses, buy a motor coach, and take trips together. I have a nice offer for my business. How do you feel? Michael, you're the most amazing man, she said as she sat on my lap and gave me a loving look. We still need to pursue hobbies outside of our marriage even though I want to be with you forever. Let's discover a shared interest. Like I did with my uncle in high school, I want to work on cars. Cassie, what about you? What are your desires? She was hesitant to speak at first, but eventually I could tell she wanted to paint and make art. We are able to lead contented and happy lives. Starting with our marriage by the water's edge, let's realize our dreams. I'm itching to pick up painting again. In college, I painted. I used to paint what I saw and take pictures. I became skilled at it. I went to an art show and took home some prizes. However, things got busy. I met my husband after getting a job. I no longer had time to paint. Michael suggested that we work things out. I think it's a good idea, he said, grinning. I really miss painting. I'd like to get started over. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm eager to start using it again. I'd like to see what I can produce right now. It will be incredible. I can't wait to paint again. Hello. If you find these contents helpful, feel free to share them with your friends and family. Additionally, as usual, since YouTube's algorithm prioritizes videos with many likes, if you enjoy this video, please click the like button to help our podcast reach a wider audience. You may also consider subscribing to the channel to receive notifications whenever I upload new content. YouTube will notify you accordingly. Thank you for your support and have a great day.